everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Strawberry Rhino and in today's video I have a full review for you of the Object 703 version 2 Black Edition. So this is one of two brand new Black Edition tanks for 2023, and the Object 703 version 2 is the World War II option, with the Jaguar Black Edition being the Cold War option. So the Object 703 version 2 is a premium tier 8 Soviet heavy tank, and it's the first tank in the game with the double-barreled guns and the double-barreled mechanics, which is new to WoT Tanks console. PC have had it for a few years, I believe now, and this has been eagerly anticipated. So in today's video, we are going to head over to Excel in just a second, compare to three other tier 8 premium heavy tanks with very similar armor models in the form of the Hydra IS-6, the Kirovets 1, and the Death Chariot. Then I'll talk to you about my commander and equipment setup, how that affects the stats of the 703-2. I'll talk to you about the armor profile over on tanks.gg, and then we will get stuck into full gameplays where I'll talk you through this brand new mechanic and how I like to play this tank on the battlefield. But first up, let's have a look at the tank itself. As you can see, it does have these two 122mm double barrel guns on the front, but a very familiar Soviet style hull, not like an IS-3 with a pike nose. It's flat across the front, but it is well angled, and we'll have to see how the armor holds up. This is the Black Edition skin. It says Black Edition or Black Friday Edition 2023 on the barrel, with this sort of shark's tooth and the shark's eye there on the turret. Not sure how I feel about that, but the rest of the tank looks pretty cool. And yeah, to see two guns coming out of the turret looks pretty fearsome indeed. So here on the article about the 2023 Black Edition tanks, it does have information if you want to read it about this double-barreled mechanic. I'll very briefly talk to you about it, and then I'll talk to you more about it during the gameplay and how to use it on the battlefield. But essentially, WoT Tanks console have opted for these semicircled indicators on the HUD with the reticle, and as you can see, they both represent the left barrel here and the right barrel, and underneath there will be little yellow triangles, and they will indicate which barrel is currently in use. As you can see here, there are yellow triangles underneath both of the barrels, meaning this is in double shot mode. However, when it's in single shot mode, like this image here, you can see that both barrels are loaded as indicated by the full white semicircle. However, this was in single shot mode and it will be firing this left barrel. You can hold down the ammo select button, which is holding down A for Xbox, and that will switch between the left and the right, but only do it when you are loaded, as otherwise you'll be interrupting the reload if you haven't reloaded a single gun yet. And yeah, you can either fire in single shot mode or in double shot mode. There is a cooldown in both of the modes. The cooldown in the single fire mode, the reload for the other barrel continues independently in the background. However, if you use the double barreled mechanic, what will happen is there'll be a cooldown and the reloads for both barrels will be interrupted, and then after that cooldown they will start reloading again. So yeah, it's about adapting your playstyle to suit the needs of this new mechanic, but it's much easier to explain during the gameplay. We'll have a quick look at the price and when you can get this vehicle. So it was released on the 21st of November with this week's update, and you can get it until the 5th of December at 09:59 UTC time, so a little while yet to pick up this tank. And you can get it in two different bundles. You can get the Back in Black 2023 class bundle, which comes with the Cold War tank and this tank for 11,600 gold, which is a fantastic price for two premium tanks if you like to play Cold War as well. If you just play World War II and you want to pick up this vehicle for a 30% savings, as opposed to 40% savings on the Cold War, which is a bit strange, it's still a good price at 7,200 gold for a very, very powerful premium tier 8 heavy tank. So that's it for the first look and a little bit of a look at the mechanics. We're now going to go on into the garage, have a look at the stats of the Object 703-2 Black Edition, which I've got here on the left. And in this review, I'm going to be comparing to the Hydra IS-6, the Kirovets 1, which are both tier 8 premium Soviet heavy tanks, and also the Death Chariot, which is a Soviet style but a Chinese Halloween tier 8 premium heavy tank. All of these have 122mm caliber guns, but they don't all come the same in terms of their alpha damage, which is a good chance for us to have a look at how the 7032 holds up against all of these other tanks. A quick note on the colour coding: red is the worst stat, green is the best, and orange is somewhere in between, with yellow my commander and equipment setup apply to the base stats, and I'll talk you through that in just a little bit. But as it is a premium tank, it will have bonuses, and the Black Edition tanks, their speciality is an XP bonus. As you can see here, it has a XP bonus of 75%, which is miles in front of the other vehicles. It's still got a pretty nice silver bonus at 50%, a long way behind the Hydra IS-6, which has 75% silver bonus. However, it is the same silver bonus as on the Kirovets one and the Death Chariot. In terms of the Commander XP, it doesn't have any, which is the same for every vehicle apart from the Death Chariot, which has 25% Commander XP, but you can still train crews if you play it enough, and most people will be playing it for the silver and for the new mechanic, and of course that 75% Black Edition bonus to the XP. And now we're going to get into the raw stats of these vehicles, and as you can see, we start with the hit points and the view range. 1500 hit points, which is the joint worst in this comparison, but only by 50, with the Hydra IS-6 and the Kirovets one coming out on top by 50 more, but a nice healthy slug of hit points. When you're top tier or in sort of tier 9 matchmaking, you can take a few shots, and when you're in tier 10 you do have to be very careful of things like the Jagdpanzer E100 Death Star, very nasty TDs that will be able to either one or two shot you. One of the worst aspects of this tank is the view range, which is 350 meters, the same as the Hydra IS-6, and it falls miles behind the Death Chariot, which has 380 meters, and the Kirovets one with 10 meters more. This means that you have to try and invest in your equipment and commander setup to get it to a level where you are able to at least spot average level for yourself. You're not going to be able to outspot any sort of medium light tanks that have any kind of form of view range and concealment, but if you boost it, you have enough to be able to spot for yourself in some engagements against other heavy tanks, and that can keep you out of trouble. So a poor stat there, but obviously there is going to be some kind of balancing mechanics for this brand new double-barreled mechanic. In terms of the mobility then, which we're going to get on to now, you can see the Object 7032 Black Edition has the joint best engine with an engine power of 720, joint with the Kirovets 1, better than the other two vehicles in this comparison. However, it does have the worst power to weight. Two guns are going to weigh this tank down, meaning you have a power to weight ratio of 11.5, which isn't the most horrendous thing in the world, but it is very slow compared to something like the Kirovets 1, which has 15.16 power to weight ratio, and is even worse than the Hydra IS-6 and the Death Chariot. So you can choose to improve in your mobility with the mobility equipment if you so wish, or with commander skills. However, I don't choose to use it. It feels pretty reasonable, and you get into position well enough, as you're going to see in the gameplay. And if you want to invest in mobility equipment, you have to sacrifice things like DPM, gun handling, which is what I highly recommend you invest your commander and equipment setup in. In terms of your top forward speed, 38 kilometers an hour, the same as the Hydra IS-6, quicker than the Death Chariot, but slightly slower than the Kirovets one, which comes out on top. And with that poor power to weight, it does take a little while to get up to that top forward speed, and that power to weight means it struggles to get up hills, which can be a little bit hard, especially considering you have very poor gun depression. So think very carefully about your positioning and when to advance on the enemy. In terms of your reverse speed, 15 kilometers an hour, 1 kilometer an hour better than the Hydra IS-6, 5 worse than the Kirovets 1, and 1 better than the Death Chariot. So pretty decent reverse speed for a heavy, good enough to get down off of the ridge lines that you can use with this poor gun depression. Lastly, hull traverse 26 degrees a second, which is the joint best, with the Death Chariot coming out on worse at 24 degrees a second, so very average for a Soviet heavy tank. You can improve that with mobility equipment, however, I feel like it's good enough. And the turret traverse, although it has the joint worst at 20 degrees a second with the Death Chariot, the only thing that beats it by a long way is the Hydra IS-6, and with good gun handling skills on your setup, this will improve. I've got mine to 24.92 degrees a second, so it is pretty sluggish, and it does turn its turret very slowly. However, once you've set it up correctly, you think about your placement on the battlefield, your firepower is more than enough to make up for this pretty mediocre mobility. In terms of the firepower then, and this is where it will get interesting, as you can see all of these tanks have 122mm caliber guns. However, the Object 703-2 Black Edition has two of them as it is a double barreled tank, so definitely bear that in mind when we are comparing these guns. Both barrels on the 703-2 Black Edition have the exact same stats, which is why there's only one set of stats here to show you. And this double barrel, as you have 390 alpha damage per shot, you are capable of dealing 780 damage per shot, and of course there is a cooldown after that. However, you can finish off targets that are within the ranges of 700 to sort of 800 damage, which is very, very powerful indeed. On the 703-2 Black Edition, you fire 3 flavours of ammunition, APCR as your standard, heat as your premium, and HE as your third ammunition selection. In terms of your speed on your APCR rounds, 1,150 meters a second is more than enough to be pretty adept at firing at mid to long ranges. However, you will lose penetration over distance, but you don't have to adjust your lead as something like the Death Chariot, which has 800 meters a second on its AP rounds, which can struggle to actually hit its targets at mid to long ranges. In terms of your speed on your heat rounds, 820 meters a second, so adjust your lead accordingly. This isn't too bad. It falls behind something like the Hydra IS-6, which fires APCR as its premium. However, it's not too bad, and for the extra penetration with the heat and over distance, you won't lose any penetration. It feels like a good trade-off. And lastly, in terms of the speed, 790 meters a second on the HE rounds, which isn't as bad as the speed on the Hydra IS-6. It's the same as the Karavet's one, and only 40 meters a second less than the Death Chariot, which comes out on top. In terms of the alpha damage then, we have just said it's 390 per shot, and you do have those 2 barrels, and if you load the HE rounds, 530 alpha damage. In terms of the other tanks, the Karavet's one has the exact same alpha damages. The Hydra IS-6 has 440 on its standard and premium and 530 on its HE, and the Death Chariot, with again a 122mm caliber gun, has the highest in this comparison, 460 on its standard and premium and 640 with the HE. In terms of your penetration with your standard rounds, the best goes to the Hydra IS-6 in this comparison. You have the same as the Karavet's one at 221, a sort of reasonable level for a tier 8 heavy tank. By no means the best, but it's definitely not the worst, and not as poor as something like the Death Chariot, which only has 208. And if you want to load those premium rounds, those heat rounds, 270mm will help you out in tier 10 matchmaking and against tier 9 vehicles, as well as some of the thicker tier 8 super heavy tanks as well. 5mm more penetration than on the Hydra IS-6 and 20mm more than on the Death Chariot, so that's a big plus for the Object 703-2 Black Edition, but I feel like it's not really necessary, and I've hardly fired any heat rounds at all in this vehicle, which goes to show that how powerful the mechanic is in the gameplay, and you will see that. In terms of the HE then, 61mm, this is the joint worst with the Karavet's one and Death Chariot, 7mm less than the Hydra IS-6, which has the best. But if you're going to be going against RT or light tanks and you know you're going to come up against them, if you load 2 full shots in 2 of your barrels with HE, yeah, you're going to be looking, if you pen, at a damage of 1060, which is very, very nasty indeed, and good for taking out those higher health RT since they were buffed. So that's the stats for both of the barrels there. How about the aim time and the DPM and all the gun handling, depression and elevation? Well, you have an aim time of 3.5 seconds, which is the worst in this comparison, only by a small way from the Hydra IS-6 and the Karavet's one and Death Chariot coming out on top. But this is a balancing mechanic because of the double-barreled feature, and yeah, it makes sense that it's going to be pretty big, but it doesn't feel too bad at all, especially when you've applied a good commander and equipment setup. And on the battlefield, I don't feel like it blooms out during movement too much, and the actual bloom during movement, I will check for you now, is 1.1 meters accuracy during movement, so it's actually not too bad on the move as well, and especially if you use something like run and gun, that will improve it, which is what I use on my setup. In terms of your accuracy, 0.44, which is better than the Hydra IS-6, it's better than the Karavet's one, and it's only beaten by the Death Chariot by 0.02, so not bad, and you can get that down to a reasonable level for a high caliber gun in terms of a heavy tank at 0.35 with my setup. In terms of your rate of fire, 4.38, which means that you reload one shell in 13.7 seconds. This is the same for both barrels, and each barrel has an independent DPM of 1708, and technically you have double that because you have the ability to fire singly, have the cooldown, but the reload continues in the background in single fire mode, which means that although it's technically on paper the worst DPM, because you have two barrels, you actually have the best DPM, the next best being the KRX-1 at 1903. And even if you just take away one of the barrels, it's not even that far away from something like the Hydra IS-6 or even the Death Chariot, which obviously don't have that capacity to fire two barrels at once. You have 20 rounds per barrel, so 40 rounds in total, and you have 5 degrees of gun depression, which is a big killer on this tank, so think very carefully about your positioning. Don't use big ridge lines, try and find the smaller ridge lines to be able to go hold down and hide your lower plate. 5 degrees is the same as the KRX-1, and the Hydra IS-6 and Death Chariot have 1 degree more, but this is very Soviet familiar. If you play Soviet heavy tanks, Chinese heavy tanks, you're going to know about the poor gun depression and adapt your playstyle accordingly. And if you hate poor gun depression on tanks, this tank might not be for you. However, the gun mechanic makes up for it in my opinion. And lastly, gun elevation, 18 degrees, the same as the KRX-1, 2 off of the Hydra IS-6, which is the best, and 1 better than the Death Chariot, which is pretty nice for this vehicle. And these two statistics down here, which I've just highlighted, are the cooldowns, which I've counted an approximate level. So if you're in single shot mode, it's a 5-second cooldown after you have fired, and the reload continues for the other barrel in the background, which means that you are increasing your DPM or keeping your DPM with both barrels, giving you that technical DPM of almost double what it says here at 1708. And if you use the double shot mechanic, it's a 4-second cooldown after you fire. Both reloads are interrupted, and one barrel does not start reloading until the 4 seconds are up. And this is going to be demonstrated in the gameplay, and hopefully it makes sense. But essentially in single shot mode, if you are fully loaded and you fire, you have that 5-second cooldown. You can fire again, and in the time in that cooldown, the other gun is reloading in the background, which is absolutely fantastic. And it actually means you have a pretty tasty DPM on this tier 8 premium Soviet heavy tank, much better than these other vehicles. And you also have that ability to be able to switch to the double-barreled mechanic, fire double-barrel to finish tanks off, and then you can reload in safety, hopefully with teammate support or behind hard cover. So fantastic news there for the Object 703-2 Black Edition. So in terms of my commander and equipment setup, what do I run on this vehicle? Well, I started actually with a pretty poor setup in my opinion. I ran advanced gun lane drive instead of vents, and I switched to the vents, and it made a whole world of difference, and I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But what I now run on this vehicle is advanced optics, improved ventilation and gun stabilizer. And in terms of my commander skills, 6th sense, born leader, rapid loading, steady aim, rapid aim, snapshot, run and gun, situational awareness and track mechanics. So in terms of my commander skills, 6th sense and born leader are standard on every one of my commanders. Rapid loading to help the DPM out. 4 gun handling skills because it is very inaccurate and a little bit derpy, even once you have applied all of these gun handling skills. Situational awareness to help the view range and track mechanic. You're going to be brawling. I don't want to be caught out in the open, especially when I've used that double barrel and I have to wait for a longer reload. And in terms of the equipment, advanced optics to help the view range, gun stabilizer to help the accuracy, and the vents to improve the view range a little bit more, but also to improve the DPM, and it helps your gun handling out as well. The reason why it made a whole world of difference switching from the advanced gun lane drive to the vents is because of that DPM, and that extra view range boost allows me to spot much easier for myself. So if you run that same setup, you'll be looking at a view range increase from 350 to 458 meters, which is great news. Not the best, but much better than it was. In terms of the mobility, the only thing that's changed is the turret reverse. As we've used the gun handling skills, it's improved it to just shy of 25 degrees a second at 24.92 degrees a second. And lastly, in terms of your gun handling, aim times drop from 3.5 to 3.16, and it doesn't feel like this figure, it feels like a lot less. In terms of your accuracy, dropped from 0.44 to 0.35, which is pretty nice. Rate of fire's gone up to 5.54, which means I now reload for one shot in 10.82 seconds, and a DPM per barrel of 2,161. Just take away that cooldown, and yeah, it's still technically double this when you are firing in single shot mode in a brawling engagement. So yeah, definitely make use of that single shot mode if you want the best DPM on this tank. But that's it for my commander and equipment setup and how that affects the stats. We're now going to head on over to tanks.gg and have a look at the armor profile of the Object 703 version 2, and this is the vehicle here. It's the exact same stats as PC has, which is where we can use this fantastic website, and it shows you the armor model of the Object 703 version 2. So this is what it looks like when it's looking at you dead in the eye, and as you can see, it's like the Kirovets one. It's not like an IS-3 with a pike nose. It's got a flat hull but very well angled back, and when it's looking at you in the face, this hull has an effective armor range of around 239 to sort of 250 towards the upper edges of this. So very nice against tier 6 and 7s, and even against quite a lot of tier 8s. When people start loading the premium, this can become a little bit of an issue, but when you angle it up like this, it goes up to around 280mm effective, so very nice. And if it's angling like this, you want to shoot this part here on the upper hull if you don't have a lower plate shot, as it will be the closest to you, will be the weakest part. In terms of the lower plate, it's 90mm of angled armor, as you can see, and from the front this still has an effective armor range of around 210mm, which is going to struggle, make tier 6s and 7s struggle to actually penetrate even your lower plate. So very, very dominant when you are top tier, and if you angle that up like this at 40 to 45 degrees, yeah, it's going to become ricochet angles there. So very, very nasty against lower tiered targets and even against same tier targets, and sometimes you'll have those lovely ricochets against tier 9 and tier 10 vehicles. In terms of that upper plate, the base armor is actually 140mm, so very, very strong indeed. And yeah, that angling is absolutely brilliant. In terms of the turret, when it's looking at you, you can see here that the sort of cheeks of the left and right of the gun are around 270mm of effective armor, which is fantastic when you consider sort of standard tier 10 penetration is around 268mm, and the outer edges are sort of ricochet angles, as you can see. So very good on a ridgeline. Imagine sort of this is all cut off and this is what you're showing your opponents. The only kind of weak spot is to the left of the gun as you're looking at it, and that's around 220mm of effective armor in this square here. It has two cupolas, however they're extremely small. They're 180mm of armor respectively, and when you're using your 5 degrees of gun depression, yeah, it's not going to be very easy to actually find these. If it's hiding its lower plate, this becomes very effective indeed. Your roof armor is 50mm here, which means that it can only be overmatched by 151mm caliber guns or higher, so Jagdpanzer E100, Death Star, things like that. Apart from that, it's a very strong roof turret. This is the full extent of the 5 degrees of gun depression, and if it's like this and you're hiding your lower plate, the effective armor on the upper hull is around 280mm, and when you're angled on a ridgeline, that's going to go up to around 300 to 310mm, so very thick indeed. One of the best things about this vehicle is the 100mm of side armor all along the bottom here, meaning it can side scrape extremely, extremely well. And it has this angled section here, which is 90mm of side armor above that 100mm. You can see here, and it's got 16mm of spaced armor over it as well. So that helps absorb HE damage and also absorb heat rounds as well. When you're angling your vehicle like this, you can see that all of this is an auto ricochet angle, and it's absolutely fantastic for side scraping. If you have an actual side shot, it's 100mm, as is 100mm of side armor. However, to go through the 90mm section, thanks to that angling and spaced armor, it's around 192 to 200mm effective, so low tiers even from the side are going to get shots absorbed into this. So if you're shooting at it from the side, you don't have good penetration, shoot the lower part below this angled section here with the spaced armor, and you'll be able to go through much, much easier. Rear of the vehicle, 81mm. Back of the turret is 90mm, but an effective because of the angling of 130mm. So this is as if we were using the Object 703 version 2's gun. If we were to load heat with this gun, you can see how strong it is. Apart from the lower plate, the only chance you have of going through the cheeks, and that's even kind of a 50-50. Cupola's very hard to hit. Over here, I've actually pre-prepared an Object 140's gun, so tier 10 Soviet medium tank, to see how the armor is. So using its APCR, if you want to penetrate this tank with a tier 10 medium tank with around 264mm of penetration, going through the lower plate, you have an almost a 100% chance. Going through the upper plate without gun depression, you have an 86% chance, and if it's using its 5 degrees of gun depression, you can see here how much more effective it is. The Object 140 will only have around a 20 to 25% chance of going through. When it's angled up, it won't be able to go through this upper hole with its standard rounds. Can't overmatch, as the Object 140 does not have a higher caliber gun than 151mm. It can still have the sort of cheek angles here, but as soon as it loads 330mm of heat pen, you can see that this tank does struggle. It now has a great chance of going through the lower plate and upper plate. Even when it's angled like this, you can see it still has a 50% chance on the outermost edges. And then the turret becomes weaker with that 330mm of heat. It can go through more sections here towards the left. However, the outer sections are still very, very strong for a tier 8 heavy tank. And lastly, I've now got the Jagdpanzer E100's gun compared to this tank, and yeah, you can see that there is a lot of green. It's got 299mm of penetration on that gun. That can go through the whole of the upper plate, even when it is angled, and it can go through more of the cheek. And if it loads its 420mm heat pen, yeah, the only place you'll be bouncing is the outer skirts of the turret, but that's still fantastic for a heavy tank. And let's say you're trying to side scrape against a Jagdpanzer E100. You can see here that you can still do it at a level like this, and you'll be side scraping against this 170mm caliber gun. So very, very strong indeed. And if you want to side scrape against something like an Object 140, you can see here that you can do it very, very well if it's using its APCR. Side scraping like this, and if it's using its heat rounds, it's still very effective. And if you over angle, sometimes you can bait people into this angle surface here, and yeah, you'll absorb the shells very nicely indeed. So that's the armor viewer of the Object 703-2 Black Edition. Very, very strong, bully lower tiered, side scraping against upper tiers, and use your firepower to get you out of trouble. So that's it for the stats review of the Object 703-2 Black Edition. We're now going to head on into the first of the 4 gameplays, so I'll see you over there in just a second. So here we are on Abbey in the first gameplay of today's video. We are here in the Object 703-2 Black Edition in an encounter battle. We've spawned in the northwest, and I'm going to make my way down the 1 and 2 line and hopefully get into some brawling action with this tank. And as you can see in the centre of the screen, my left barrel is now loaded, and I'm in single fire mode as designated by the small yellow triangle. Now the right semicircle has completely filled in white, which means both barrels are loaded, and I can switch to the double barrel mode by pressing left on the D-pad to enter the double barrel mode, or left on the D-pad to go back into single mode. And if I wanted to switch barrels now, I hold down A, which is the ammo select button, and I could choose to fire out of the left or out of the right. So we come up now against an ARL-44. Yeah, we can put one shot into him. Now he is a one shot for our double-barreled gun. As you can see, it switched to the right barrel with that cooldown in the single fire mode. The reload carried on in the left barrel, and now we're already fully loaded in both barrels. Our right barrel is the active barrel. We switched to double shot mode, and we one-shot that poor Jagdpanzer 4. There's that cooldown there where there is no reload going on in either barrel, and now the right barrel starts reloading again, and that is the mechanics in essence. If you do use that double shot, you are definitely making your DPM worse. However, when you have the ability to one-shot a tank, that's when you take it. If you want to know when to fire your double shot, it's either when you really have to get someone out of a game, when you have a one-shot kill and you just want to confirm them out of the game. Apart from that, use the single fire, use the DPM, and it's a pretty high DPM when you consider both barrels. So we fire there with the right barrel, And as you can see, it immediately switched to the left and the right was loading straight away during the cooldown, and we're already loaded again. Put another shot and take out that SMV CC67. The damage racks up very quickly in this tank, and yeah, it's a very powerful tank when you are top tier. We're trying to sort of angle at 40 to 45 degrees, coming around corners, side scraping where possible. We've taken no damage so far, and now we're going to hopefully put the hurt on the enemy. So I told you that you can switch between your left and your right barrel by holding down the ammo select button. Is there any kind of reason when you are fully loaded why you'd want to switch to a certain barrel? Well, if you're side scraping around a corner, sometimes the barrel which is closest to the hard cover that you're side scraping around can sort of catch the rock or the hard cover, so you might want to switch to the outermost barrel to be able to have a clean shot if you're firing in single shot mode. What we did there is get to the side of that Liberté, and yeah, we absolutely obliterated that tier 8 tank, setting him on fire. And when you are using 2 shots, there's a great chance you're going to damage a module, and then you're going to damage the same module again. So if you hit the ammo rack, damage it, you could also hit the ammo rack again and then blow someone up. And that's why something on your commander skills like the Deadeye perk would be quite good if you wanted to maybe take off the track mechanic that I use, tinker around with it a little bit. Yeah, a very powerful tank indeed. So we've noticed that we can't really push more towards the south. Most of the enemies with the hit points are back over on the eastern side of the map, and I'm going to make my way through the north and hopefully get a little bit more out of this game. And yeah, you've noticed if you've been in battles the last few days that this tank is very popular. A lot of people have bought it because it's a great price and it's very powerful. When you're top tier, it's basically whoever has more of these tanks, and as long as you're reasonably competent at the game, yeah, this tank is going to be able to win you a lot of games. So this gameplay and another gameplay in today's video, you're going to be watching me play this tank not to its fullest capabilities, and this is one of them. So I initially started with the gun lay and drive throughout the vent, so my DPM is a little bit worse than it was in the stats review part of today's video. And my gun handling might be slightly better with the aim time, however my view range isn't going to be as good. And what it's going to mean for me is that I'm not playing it to its full capabilities, and I'm not utilising this single shot mode. I was always kind of waiting to try and always make sure I had 2 guns loaded, but it just does not really matter because both guns have the same reload time. You might as well use the single shot to the highest DPM, and those reload carries on during the cooldown. So yeah, not quite playing it to its full capabilities there, but we still managed. Top of the team, very, very easy there. 1626 base XP, nice profit, 4 kills, 3.7k direct damage, 195 assistance, and 590 blocked. 4 minutes 32 second battle, very, very indicative of a top tier battle in this tank. So now we're going to head on into the second gameplay. So now we are on steps in the second gameplay of today's video. Again, it's an encounter battle. We've spawned in the south western corner of the map, and I'm going to make my way down the west towards the north and try and get into some more brawling action. We are again top tier, so hopefully we can be dominant again. And in that short space of time that I've been waffling on at the start of the battle, we're already loaded with 2 barrels, and this is what makes this tank so damn powerful. We now have this opportunity to use the single fire in both of the barrels, use the pretty nice DPM, which you don't really see on paper, but as soon as you start playing this tank, you really feel that you seem to always have a shot available to you. And yeah, if we come up against a lower tier target, we are able to put a shot into them and yeah, probably take them out with our double barreled shots. We put one into the KV4 there, and then we're going to carry on waiting for the reload as we don't have an available shot. We're getting some nice assistance as we are spotting tanks up to our right, and they're in the middle, and all of our tanks behind are going to be able to shoot them. And now we're going to be single firing these guns on this Earthshaker, and as you can see, when the cooldown's finished, the other gun's already reloaded, because the reload always starts in single fire after or during the cooldown, meaning that you don't have to wait for the cooldown then reload, and it's just so damn good. So we're in a little bit of a sort of sticky situation in terms of our gun depression here. It's not the easiest to use, however we do have the high ground. We have an Emil 1951, so if I can get a little bit higher, he's not going to be able to elevate his gun and get a shot into my lower plate. And now we're going to try and poke over, get a shot into the top of the Earth Shaker, into the cupola, and he subsequently gets taken out by the Peugeot 54. We've blocked 1070 damage already, 1.1k damage done, and 449 assistance. The artie's trying to run. We don't have to give too much lead because of that pretty nice shell velocity, and now that artie is a one-shot. The hammer is a one-shot for our double-barreled mechanic. However, I don't choose to use it here because I want to try and keep the DPM up as much as possible. We are taking fire from the M41D who's shooting our lower plate, so a good player there. And I wanted to have the DPM in case I needed to take out this Emil 1951. And now we can go over, put one into the AMX tank destroyer. That hammer gets taken out. The AMX AC-48 is sort of like 40-30% chance with a double-barreled shot to be able to take him out, so probably put one more shot into the single fire mode. However, we can't advance until we take out this T-77, and I'm just umming and ahhing in this position. Do I want to go up, and do I want to just take a shot possibly to finish off this T-77? We have enough alpha damage with our double-barreled shot to be able to take him out. I'm going to go up. Now I know I'm clear from the left, and we put one into the cheeks of the turret there, and that's so beautiful. You can take out a pretty reasonably healthy tier 8 heavy tank there with one shot. The KV-4 is still on 1.1k damage. We're going to wait for the reload. We're now in single shot mode with the right barrel activated, as you can see. Going to come around, put one into the lower plate there. You can see that I'm not firing any heat. This is all APCR at the moment, and the pretty reasonable penetration of this gun is doing us some pretty good work. The Peugeot 54 and me kind of stop, get in each other's way, and the KV-4 subsequently gets taken out by the other friendly Object 7032 Black. And now we're going to make our way towards the north, where there are a light tank artillery and also an enemy Minotaur, I believe, so hopefully we can be the ones to find them and get some more damage in this gameplay. And this is one of the gameplays that I'm using the vents instead of the gun lane drive, so we have full sort of view range that I can get on this tank, as well as better gun handling and also extra DPM. And you can see the aim time just doesn't feel too bad at all, and because of the commander skills in World of Tanks console, this gun doesn't feel as derpy as it does on PC from what I've seen. And yeah, that's probably the same for all guns, but it really benefits guns that were initially quite derpy, as you're able to do things like this, snipe into weak spots of tier 8 heavy tanks. Could have gone for the double barrel there to get the extra damage in. However, we reload so quickly, we get the assistance as well, and the equalizer finishes off that Minotaur for another decent game there on steps, where we finish in the MVP slot with a lovely profit with or without a premium account with an op going. That's only a second class for a high caliber, 1730 base XP, 1 kill, 4.1k direct damage, 466 assistance, and 1.6k block, showing you very, very dangerous. And only 4 minutes and 25 seconds to rack up that amount of damage. Very powerful indeed. So that's it for the second gameplay. We're now going to head on into the third one. So now we are on Erlenberg in the third gameplay of today's video, and we're finally in a standard battle. We have spawned in the north, and I'm going to make my way as quick as possible over to the sort of C8 location just below those hills on the eastern side of the map, and we're going to try and get some brawling going. The reason I'm making this very aggressive and dangerous push across the open ground is because if we can get into position, we can go hold down on some of the lower ridge lines at the bottom of the hill. There's no artillery, so we can sit there and hopefully get some beautiful assistance. We've got a lot of tanks coming in support, so I'm going to make my way over there. You can see at the bottom of the screen, large repair, large med, and more importantly, the combat rations to actively now boost the view range up. And the combat rations really helps with your DPM as well, so I highly recommend it if you can. Thinking about firing on the move there, but I don't do so. And we have made it almost into safety here, just a little bit further, and we can get into the safety of these ridge lines. And then if anyone sort of pushes us, we've got a whole row of tanks on the 2 line which should have shots just behind me. And we've also got the heavy tanks and medium tanks just behind me that can also support me as well. So we spot this Pershing up on the hill there, just finding a place where we can use the gun depression, and we put one into that Pershing and also get a little bit of assistance. And as you can see, I'm angling at that 40 to 45 degrees angle, trying to keep my lower plate hidden, go in hold down and using the fantastic upper plate and turret that this tank has. And if anyone pushes us, we've probably got more DPM than them, as we are again top tier, and all the gameplays in today's video are going to be where we're top tier. I had hardly any games where I was playing against tier 10 vehicles in the Object 7032 Black, and if I did, they were still decent games, just not quite as much damage, maybe a few shots less. You just got to play a little bit more passively and know that your upper hull can be penetrated by tier 9 and 10 tanks more easily than against tier 8 vehicles. And that's all you really need to know. You still got to try and play the same hold down, angle up, side scrape, but just try and support maybe the thicker armoured tanks that are on your team at tiers 9 and 10. But when you are top tier, you can make aggressive pushes like we're doing here in these gameplays, and you can be right at the forefront because this is a fantastic brawling heavy tank. So we're getting some nice view range here as we've boosted our view range up, so that's why it's so important to boost your view range up, otherwise you'll be completely blind and we might not have been able to see something like that Hellcat. We still don't have quite enough view range to see someone that is shooting at us from the distance there. There are 4 tank destroyers left on the enemy team, so don't want to be too reckless and go out right now. Going to get shots where they appear, one into that 65T, and try and take these tanks, whittle them down one by one. We're still getting assistance. We have heavy and medium tanks behind us, and now we're trying to get as many rounds out as possible. Unfortunately for us there, our shot on the SU just went into the tracks, and this is another gameplay where I'm not playing it to its full potential. So I could have carried on firing there and I would have been able to get another 2 shots there, but what I was doing was continually trying to play it like an auto reloader, so keeping that one shell loaded, firing the one, waiting for a reload, firing the same barrel again, where you just really do not need to do it. Each barrel reloads the exact same time, the exact same DPM, so as long as you are continuously sort of firing on reload, the reload's happening behind that cooldown, and you'll only switch into that double barrel when you have that chance to take out a vehicle, or when you want to sort of severely cripple a tank and you're not going to be firing for quite a while. So we've picked up 1.1k direct damage, 945 block to 1.4k assistance. It's equal on the results at the top of the screen. It's now 9 versus 9. We are losing the western side of the map, so I might have to go back towards the north, defend our base at some point. So what I'm going to do now is make a push down this 9-0 line. I'm going to try and angle up, and on the move just wiggle, hopefully that someone catches an auto ricochet angle or gets baited into shooting my side. Try and clear out this side, and then if needs be we can return back to our base. We still have 3 tanks over there defending, so hopefully we can win this side. King Dragon there's aiming at us, SU 130 PM aiming at us. I'm going to take the time now to stop, get a double shot into him and take out a very dangerous tier 8 tank destroyer. The HMH M51 there gets baited, shoots into our side, hits that 90mm angled section of side armour right at the top with the 16mm of spaced armour, and he doesn't go through from the side. Typical Soviet heavy tank things there. It's just like a complete abyss into the side of this vehicle, and yeah, it just seems to work in top tier gameplays and makes you absolutely dominant. And sometimes in sort of tier 9, tier 10 matchups, you'll get lucky. You'll get a Jagdpanzer E100 or a Death Star or something like that, maybe a Grill 15, shoot at you. If you quickly angle, bait it into your side, that 100mm of side armour at the bottom, 90mm of angled top with the spaced 16mm can mean that you just absorb shots left, right and centre into your side armour. So very, very strong. And now we're going to make the push. We've got 4 hit points left. We're up by 2 tanks, so I should have been probably more aggressive in the mid stages of this battle, but I didn't want to get taken out. When you get flanked and you're fighting numerous tanks, that's when you are a little bit vulnerable. And of course, your side and rear are weaker than your hull and your turret. The Scorpion G is now on a one-shot, so what I'm going to do is wait for the double-barreled. Now I'm going to press left on the D-pad, go into the double-barreled mode, and I'm going to try and take out this SU. King Dragon fired, so we're just going to go over, take a shot if needs be, And there we go, we take out that Scorpion G, who probably thought he could take a shot there to get one into me. However, we have this double-barreled gun, and we can, yeah, just completely obliterate tanks on around 700 to 800 damage, which is absolutely insane, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. Now I'm going to wait for the full reload here. I don't feel like I'm going to get more than the double-barreled shot in here, which is why I'm waiting for the double-barreled shot. Fortunately, he takes a shot, which means we can get one into his lower plate. Unfortunately, the other shot derped, so they don't always both penetrate. They always don't both hit. You can put APCR in one barrel and HE in another barrel, or heat in one barrel and APCR in another barrel if you so wish. However, it really doesn't feel like it's necessary. 2 HE could be quite fun for splashing some of the targets that you can't penetrate, but in that game we finished with 4 kills, 3.5k direct damage, the sniper medal first class, 2.4k assistance, 1825 base XP, and yeah, a pretty nice game there on Erlenberg, blocking 2.2k damage in top tier in a 6-minute 45-second battle, showing you all of the great features of this tank where I wasn't playing, you know, completely at my best, and we still had a very decent result. So we're now going to head on into the 4th and final gameplay, which is my best game so far in this tank, and I'll see you over there in just a second. So we are on Hidden Village in the 4th and final gameplay of today's video, and we are in the Object 7032 Black in a standard battle. We've spawned in the southeast, and I'm going to make my way along the sort of banana curve that heads up into the centre of the map towards the west, and I'm going to try and get some brawling going. There are 2 artillery per side, so I've got to be a little bit careful, but we are top tier, so I'm very, very confident when I'm top tier in this vehicle, and I do apologise for not having any sort of tier 9 or tier 10 matchmaking. Like I said, I had a few that were decent enough games, but it just would not have shown you what this tank is all about and the sort of fun aspects of this tank. When I get some gameplay that show you what the true sort of aspects of this tank are like in tier 9 and tier 10, I will put them up for you and show you that it's not all sort of fun and games when you do get into those tier 10 matchups, but the armour can still hold up occasionally, and the firepower is the same. It still can be very deadly. You just got to aim for the weak spots and occasionally load some of those very nice 270mm heat rounds. So making our way into position, we get spotted by a Tiger 1, just trying to get into the sort of shade of these trees underneath this ridgeline to protect us against any incoming fire. And we are a bit vulnerable here from artillery, but it doesn't seem to be aiming at us at the moment. We're just going to poke around this corner, see what's waiting for us. A CS-44, we put one into him. And as you can see, as soon as the cooldown's finished, we're already only about 4 seconds away from reloading the left barrel again. Yeah, very dangerous tank with its DPM. So this Earthshaker pops up, doesn't come back round. We're going to angle like this, kind of half side scraping around this rock. If I really wanted to sort of guarantee the shot going in, I could switch by pressing the ammo select button and holding it down now, and it would switch to my left barrel, which would mean that I'd have more of a chance of my shot going on target and less into the rock. However, it still goes straight into that lower plate of the Earthshaker, and we're going to have to make a move now. I don't feel like the Earthshaker is going to be coming around that corner, because as soon as he comes around, he gets spotted and he takes damage. So we're going to make a bit of a push now. We do get spotted by a CS-44, and he's on low enough hit points that we quickly switch by pressing left on the D-pad to the double barrel, and we take him out of the game. He's back in the garage, and we're up to 1.4k direct damage. We're now going to wait for our reload to go in the safety of this hard cover, and as soon as we are reloaded again, we're going to make our push. And we don't have to wait for both shells to reload. Again, I'm playing this tank a little bit more like you should be playing it, not waiting for both shells to always reload, just playing it like a single fire gun and making the most of that nice DPM. We get a shot there into the Earthshaker. It goes a little bit high into its turret, I believe, means that we don't pen, but we're side scraping well around this corner, and now we can put one into the Earthshaker. We slightly went too far back there, which means the Earthshaker had a shot into our lower plate, so we're going to side scrape a little bit less there and get the second shell into the tracks of the Earthshaker. I'm going to go forward, hoping that my friendly tank behind me takes out, but the Earthshaker repairs just in time to get out of harm's way. And now we're going to side scrape against this tier 7 Italian TD, go for the cupola, and we hit. It can feel a little bit derpy, this gun, sometimes, but for the most part it seems to just aim where you select your reticle if you have set up the tank in a similar way that I showed you during the stats part of today's gameplay. We're down by 2 tanks, so we have to be a little bit quicker maybe in this situation to be able to take out these tanks. Then we can turn around and defend the base. I don't feel like this Italian TD is going to be coming around the corner. This IS looks like he's going to be taken out by the heavy and medium beneath me. So what I'm going to do is turn around and then I'm going to make my way back to the base. And I'm going to be thankful that I did by the time I get there. We're getting targeted by artillery and narrowly misses entering the rear of our vehicle. I don't know how I said vehicle there. That was a weird intonation. But yeah, let's move on. We're going back to the base. There are a glut of tanks there. 2 heavies, a medium and a light tank. This Aguila tier 8 light tank does get a shot into us. We get one into him, which allows our LTTB to come around the corner, finish off the Lycan that was with him. We're going to get a shot now on the move on this Tornvan, and fortunately, thanks to run and gun skill, we get a shot there into him. Unfortunately, we do take some damage, but we set him on fire and we get a nice bit of damage. And now we're going to go back and defend the base with our 2 medium tanks. And thankfully, we made a decision to get back early on, because if we sort of waited there for another 1 or 2 minutes, it would have meant that we wouldn't have been able to get into this position where we can kind of go hull down and also side scrape against the rock in front of us. Our M48 there goes around the corner, takes out 2 tanks there, and which allows us to come around, get a shot into this Asterion. We track him in place, and it looks like we also bounced a shot from the distance there from the Tornvan. Tornvan's got an extremely long reload. If it gets hull down, it's going to be nigh on impossible to actually penetrate. However, he's now on a 1-shot for us. What I'm going to do is a quick auto-lock aim. It's the best kind of chance there. Try and fire before he does. Quick draw style like in the Western movies, and we take out the Tornvan B there. Tornvan Black. Very fun tank to play, but an extremely long reload. Come round. Unfortunately, I don't side scrape or angle correctly there, which means we do take a damage and shot to the lower plate. So it's not impossible to take damage in this vehicle. And now we are on a 1-shot, but we quickly switch to the double barreled there as the Asterion's coming around, which allows us to take him out. And if we only had 1 barrel loaded, or we were firing single shot there, he probably would have taken us out. And the ability to be able to switch to our double barrel there meant that it kept us in the game. So fantastic news for us there. We're up to 5.1k direct damage. We blocked 1500, 281 assistance. The M48 Rampanzer takes out the Earthshaker. There's 2 artillery left and 1 medium tank. So we're going to turn around. The LTTB is going to go forward. He spots this UDES and he takes out the UDES. So fantastic work from the LTTB there. And we're just going to hide in the sort of shade here underneath this rock to try and avoid taking any splash damage from the artillery, as a splash from either of them would kill us, as we're only on 56 hit points. And now we can go forward looking for the artillery, and this is where the double barrel again is so damn fun. If there's an artillery that tier 7, tier 8 and it's taken a shot, because of the higher alpha damage the hit points they now have, thanks to the buff that artillery technically got when they were trying to be nerfed, it allows us to be able to put more damage into the artillery and potentially take them out with 1 shot, rather than having to sort of sit in the open and hoping that they miss us. So we turn around as the equalizer gets spotted, go back down here towards our base. He's taking damage from the medium tank. We switch to our double barreled, we load up, and both shots hit and we take out that equalizer, proving just what I was saying, how good it is to be able to switch to those double barreled shots, take out artillery that are on more hit points than a single shot would take out, but the double barrel does the job. And the LTTB, another great kill there on the M12, finishing that game on Hidden Village, where we finished in first place there in the MVP position. A great profit with or without a premium account, only a first class for 2,134 base XP, showing you, yeah, people are playing this mentally well. 4 kills, 5.7k direct damage, 281 assistance, 1,500 blocked in a 7 minutes and 28 second battle, showing you the damage racks up very quickly in this vehicle. So that's it for my review of the Object 703 version 2 Black Edition. It's one of the best sort of deals in recent times, and probably one of the best black tanks available out of the whole collection. I highly recommend picking it up if you can and you like your heavy tanks. The new mechanics, very fun. I'd expect next season there'd probably be a tech tree. Hopefully the Soviet double barrel tech tree comes in, and that would be great news, as it's very fun, very competitive, and I feel like it's reasonably well balanced, almost maybe slightly too good. We'll just have to see what the stats say. And sorry for getting this video out a couple days late. Some in real life stuff prevented me from getting the video out, but hopefully this helps you play it or just entertains you with the gameplay. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.